How many of you guys like the TV show Shark Tank? Any Shark Tank fans in here? Everybody seen it? Everybody know what it is? Yeah. People? I feel like that every time I come up here. I feel like I'm on Shark Tank. It's like, oh my gosh, there's a bunch of people watching to see what I'm going to say. And you have to kind of sell you on everything in the first 3 minutes. So I'm going to do my first intro part as if I'm walking on the Shark Tank. Are you ready? I got a great product for you guys. Okay, here we go. I'm ready to go. I got to kick into my mode here. Welcome, Sharks. How are you doing today? I have a product for you that's going to keep your life miserable. Wow. If you want to lose your wife, if you want to have your kids not like you and want to leave home early, I have a product for you. If you want to have all your fellow employees leave your company and go somewhere else to your competitor, I got a product for you. If you want your best friends to basically distance themselves from you, I got something just for you. It is called Ingratitude. Okay. I'm really happy to know that I can already tell some of you guys are my clients already. And that is the problem. Many of us, we hear this word, and I'll be honest with you. What I'm going for is an attitude of ingratitude will cost you dearly. An attitude of ingratitude will cost you dearly. You understand this. I don't even have to, I can probably just walk off stage and go, don't do this. But it's the reality. Because when we have this attitude of ingratitude, now you're going, why didn't I just say ungrateful? Because it doesn't rhyme with attitude. So attitude of ingratitude sounds so much cooler than attitude of ungratefulness. See, it just doesn't have the same ring to it. Many of us have an attitude of ingratitude, and I want to just confess, I am 100% guilty of this. We take things for granted. We say people, hey, they owe that to me. They should do that because I paid them to do that. That waiter should be there because I'm going to tip them. All these different things where these attitudes of ingratitude kick in when we're ungrateful for the things around us. Now, we usually got to feel from both sides. We've been on both sides of this. And this is kind of the issue. There are moments that you have been in a position, and if somebody would have just said thank you, it would have changed the whole course of that relationship. You've been, and maybe some of this has cost you your marriages in the past. You felt like they didn't appreciate you. Now, here's just something I always want to put this on the screen, just show you this. Ingratitude, here goes this. In ingratitude, the recipient is always aware that ingratitude has happened. You are completely, when you do something for somebody and they don't do anything in return, they don't say thank you, they don't show any appreciation, you 100% of the time, you notice it. You notice it. It's built into who we are. But here's the catch. Look at this next line. The initiator is rarely aware that it ever took place. You did something for them. You feel that they showed ingratitude towards you. They never noticed. And that's what even makes it more deadly in relationships. Normally the person who was supposed to show gratitude didn't even realize they didn't do it. They don't even realize that you maybe are feeling hurt, that you're feeling disappointed in how they responded. Here's how I know this. Have you ever heard this phrase? Honey, I think we need to talk. Men, what does that mean? Run. Run. Run away. Because we know that something's about to be said. And I can tell you this, and I'm going to share a lot about my life here, and hopefully you'll appreciate how much my wife goes through. So about every spring, I do real estate, and so my springs and summer are really busy. And usually in the spring, it's been a few years back when I was first starting and is just really kind of getting overwhelmed by it all. My wife said this phrase, and I'll never forget it. She goes, I didn't sign up to be a single mom. And I was like, ooh. She was taking care of the kids. She was cutting the grass. She was doing all these things because I was too busy. And so that is where this starts happening in relationships. I was completely unaware. I had no idea that this was really happening. I was focused. I was doing business. I'm making money for the family. I'm doing all this for the family. I didn't notice any of this stuff was really good. Anything was wrong until that phrase came out. Then I knew something was wrong. Has anybody else been through a conversation like this? Come on. Please help me out, guys. Thank you. this is the reality of relationships, and this is why ingratitude is very rarely, the person who doesn't do it isn't aware. And these things just keep building and building and building and building, and the person who is supposed to be shown gratitude, it builds and builds and builds until it's a point where they basically just, I'm done. I'm not going to do anything else. And this can happen with our kids, and we'll talk a bit more about this as we go. I was trying to sell my product, and I got your attention, right? An attitude of ingratitude will basically destroy all your meaningful relationships in your life. And so we have to learn, how do we beat this? How do we change this? This is something I need to change. Well, in the book of Luke, Jesus has a moment where he kind of makes a point about all of this. And it's a story about 10 lepers, 10 men with leprosy. And let me just say this. Let me just read the first passage to you. Here it goes. Oh, wait, hold on. I got to do one more slide because I want to tell you this, because this is an important one. Gratitude and ingratitude determine the depths of our relationships. And let me even add another thing I would add into this. Gratitude and ingratitude determine the depth and the direction of our relationships. This whole topic that we're talking about, because unfortunately, gratitude and ingratitude, your relationships are going to shift and go back and forth. They're going to start heading towards ruin or heading towards blessing in the midst of this, over this one little topic. And it's slow. That's the thing. It's a slow burn. It's a slow killer. You're infected before you know it. And then the symptoms start showing. And then you find yourself so deep into this that you have so much unbearing yourself to do. Matter of fact, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to throw myself under the bus before I do anything here, okay? I stink at this. I am not a letter writer. I do not like writing notes. I do not like doing anything like that. And my wife and I, we just had our 19-year anniversary, wedding anniversary. So we made a 19 years she's put up with me. Woo! Thank you, God. Thank you. Well, let me just share my feelings, though, with that. And because I knew this is something I really struggled at. And I think, has anybody ever realized you love your spouse more than the day you married them? Yeah. And that's how it should be. Because at some point you get to an age, you look back and you realize, like, wow, I didn't do this on my own. We're going to talk more about that too. But here, let me share my thing. This is a stack because for 19 years, I rarely wrote my wife any kind of note of appreciation other than signing my name or writing I love you to somebody else's thoughts that they would put on the card. And so what I had to do, and I just felt this is before I even knew I was going to teach this topic, for anniversary, I wrote a card for each one of the years we were married. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But let's not miss the point. It's because I failed to do it the first 19 years. So let's not miss that. I had 18, 19 years worth of letters to write, and so I went back and I wrote one acting as if it was given that year. So I went back and I looked at pictures and I wrote them in a way that said, hey, here, this year, this is what took place in our lives. We had our child. Thank you for giving birth. Thank you. And I really do appreciate the whole childbearing thing. That's great. But I don't want anything to do with that part of it. And so 19 years worth of it. And I said, because I want to throw myself under the bus first because I am not good at this. And so as we talk about this isn't me telling you what to do. It's us learning this together. Okay, so I was always like that mentality. So Jesus has a time where he teaches this in the book of Luke. And it's Luke chapter 17. And he basically, I'm going to read the phrase, here's how it starts. He goes, now on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. Now, if you understand, Galilee was up north, Samaria was in the middle, Judea was in the lower south, and so he's going along the border trying to get down to Judea. As he was walking into the village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. And let me just say, when you have leprosy, you do not become leprechauns. This was my Sunday school. I remember it messed me up in Sunday school. They're leprechauns in the Bible. I was a Notre Dame fan. They had Touchdown Jesus, a leprechaun on the field. It all worked for me. I don't know why, but I found out later, if you have leprosy, you do not become a leprechaun. So just letting you know that. You don't become a little man wearing green and talk funny. So you just got to make sure you understand. Leprosy is basically, the skin is basically rotting away. And to let you know, there is a cure for it now, so there's not, people still do get leprosy, but they have a cure for it now. So it's going away. But in this day and time, this was a huge thing. These men with leprosy, were sent out into the wilderness. They were sent out of the city. If they came even near town, if you came near, they had to ring bells to let you know they were coming because they felt it was so contagious and people were so terrified of it. It sounds like today, doesn't it? So here we go. Here we go again. So all this stuff happening, and so basically these people were banished. These people's lives were stolen from them. These people they're excommunicated beyond belief. People were terrified of them. So just kind of get this mental picture of what's really happening here. Because a lot of times we hear this, we go, leprosy. Who has leprosy? Leprechauns? What's going on? You know, that's just, hey, that was real. I thought that for a while. Okay, here we go. He goes, as he was going into a village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. They stood at a distance and called out in a loud voice, Jesus, Master, have pity on us. Now, most of the time when Jesus is about to heal somebody, Jesus would walk in, put his hands on them. He would touch them. He would talk to them. This is a little different. When he saw them, he said, go show yourselves to the priest. That's all he said. Didn't touch him. Didn't say, rub anything on your eyes. And he goes, go show yourselves to the priest. And you go, why are they going to the priest? The priest had to basically certify that they were now cleansed. He basically had to say, you are now clean enough to re-enter society. You are now clean enough to go back into the realm of everyone back. I mean, these guys couldn't see their families. Often their families and the priests, they felt this was kind of like, this was their punishment from God. That's why you got leprosy. You did something to tick God off. That's why you've got it. So these men basically were emotionally, socially, and just physically banished from everything. And here's Jesus going, go show yourself to the priest. We got leprosy, Jesus. We got leprosy. This doesn't go away. This doesn't go away on its own. But what do these guys have to lose? Not much. They're already banished. Everything about their life is basically gone. So Jesus telling them to go see the priest is kind of a moment of stepping of faith for them. A huge one. Do we go? Just because he told us to? Do we do this? And there's also some other things that kick in here too. We don't know how far away the priest was. The priest might have been a few hours, might have been a few days away to go get certified as cleansed. And so this was a big step. So let's hear how they follow. When he saw them, he says, go show yourselves to the priest. When he saw them, he said, here he goes. And they went, they were cleansed. And as they went, they were cleansed. We don't know how long that was. How many days? Was that hours? Was it, hey, I woke up next day, I'm cleansed. Oh my gosh, it's all gone. My fingers are back and look normal. And I'm sure they're just thrilled. Could you imagine? Everything about you has been banished. Everything about you has been deemed as worthless. Almost actually, you've been punished. You're mean. You're awful. And you wake up and you're cleansed. And so I'm sure these men were just running all out to get to the priest. They hadn't seen their families. They hadn't seen anybody. They want to go back to life as normal again. We understand this now a little bit more, don't we? This was way deeper than what we're dealing with now, guys. They run towards the priest. But let's go on a little bit further. One of them, when he saw he was healed, came back praising God in a loud voice. He came back to Jesus. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him, and he was a Samaritan. Now, this Samaritan, remember we said they have Galilee up top, Judea down below, Samaritans in the middle. They were they were not seen highly of. Sometimes the Jews felt they were kind of dirty. They kind of had a twisted kind of Jewish faith where they kind of twisted some things around. They did not get along. They were not wanting to mingle with them at all. And so the fact, and it's funny it points this out, is the most unlikely person in the whole story is the one who returned. We don't know the nationalities of the other, but it says very specific, a Samaritan. He was a Samaritan. The most unlikely returned to do what? Show gratitude, to give thanks. His life had been completely changed. Matter of fact, he went back to thank the one who enabled him to move forward with his life. It was a life-changing moment. The entire direction of his world changed at that moment. And he understood enough to go back and give thanks. It's moments like this. When I go back to write this, I understand the position and the things that my wife has done for me. Going back 19 years of doing it really drew up some things like, wow, what has she endured? Putting up with me for 19 years, that's endurance. But in the story here, this is even far greater. Their entire worlds were changed in that moment. as we continue on with the story, let's hear some things that Jesus says. Because this doesn't just jump off the page. Here he goes. Jesus asked, were not all 10 cleansed? Did my miracle not work for everyone? Did I not have enough power and juice, spiritual juice, to heal all 10? Were you the only one that got healed? Were you the only one? Did I miss something? Do they need to come back for another, try again or something like that? I'm sure this is Jesus kind of just making a point, isn't it? He's just saying, it was kind of a grin on his face. You think Jesus he had some times. He was pretty funny at times. He made some funny jokes. He goes, we're not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Now, this is a big question here. And this is where we want to focus. We're not all 10 cleansed. Where are the other 9? Now, you go, why is that important? Because what we understand in this is Jesus was trying to make a point of this. Although they were all healed, there's something unfinished when we do something for somebody and they don't return, they don't come back to show gratitude and appreciate it. There's something missing. Things are kind of unfinished. They're incomplete. You know this from a kid. Think maybe you were a kid, and you're maybe going up, and maybe it's Christmas time, and Santa Claus is at the mall. Anybody did that? You went to the mall to see Santa Claus, and you went in there, and the people, somebody gave you candy, and you're like, candy, yes, and you're starting with it. But what would the adult say to you before you opened it? What do you say? What do you say? And you're like, I want Starburst. I wanted chocolate. No, you were supposed to say, thank you. We as adults, we understand that kids who don't learn at a young age to complete the cycle, to finish the loop, to kind of come around to the other, to complete it all, the action, that if something's given, we say, thank you. We show gratitude. Now, this is important because we as adults, we forget this. We completely space this often. We completely think, oh, that's just for kids. They got to say thank you. But remember if you didn't say thank you and you're a parent and your kid didn't say thank you? It was a reflection on you, wasn't it? It made you go, oh, I failed. Because you knew you didn't teach your kids well enough to learn the next part of it, how to complete it. And the problem is many of us grew up with parents who maybe didn't show it. They didn't demonstrate it either. They didn't show much appreciation to you. And you, matter of fact, that's why you wanted to get out of the house so quick. You were at, 18, I'm out of this place. You tried really hard on something. You'd worked your tail off on stuff, and your parents showed no appreciation. Now, I'm not talking participation trophies here, okay? So don't get me wrong. But you tried, and nobody ever noticed. So the point is, what normally happens? We stop trying. You've been there. And we see Jesus at this moment saying, weren't they all cleansed? Are you the only one that's coming back? He goes back, he goes, has no one returned to give praise to God except for this foreigner? Then he said to him, rise and go, your faith has made you well. Now these men had some great strengths. Let's be honest. All 10 of them had some faith. They started heading off for a journey to tell a priest that they're healed and they had leprosy. And can you imagine this poor priest when he gets these people walking in the door? You had what? We had leprosy just yesterday. You had what? His mind's got to be blown. Like, what's going on? Something has changed, and something is big time it's changed. This doesn't normally happen. This is a miracle. And it's almost kind of like when we understand how great of a miracle it is, the things that we've been blessed with and that we've been given, and then to not show gratitude just leaves it unfinished. Think about the things in your life that you've given so much to. Was there ever any, and you've been left hanging for that gratitude? You know that feeling. You know that experience. Why didn't they notice? Didn't they see it? I worked so hard. Why don't they understand? Because like we said at first, usually the person who's supposed to give gratitude isn't aware they were supposed to. They're unaware that you're upset, you're hurt. And this is what damages our marriages, our families, our coworkers, our employees, our volunteers. When you're a not-for-profit, you don't show gratitude, they will find places to find it. So we're going to go a little bit further. He goes, the other 9, dropping a little bit, the other 9, they felt it. They just didn't express it. If we went up and we found those other 9 guys walking through with their families, we go, didn't you understand that what Jesus just did for you? Aren't you grateful? They're like, oh, yes, we're grateful. I was in the middle of nowhere. I had leprosy. My body was rotting away. And now I'm back with my family. This is awesome. They feel all the gratefulness, but they never expressed it. And that's the missing link. That is the thing that takes it, this feelings and all this stuff that we think is so important. We think, yes, we teach our kids, but if we don't express it, it's worthless. We miss it. It's incomplete. And so we have to learn, how in the world do we start? He goes, so the other 9, they felt it. They just didn't express it. And here's the problem. This is where it gets us. Today's going to be a quick message. I'm just trying to get this point across. I only have one point in my message today, and you're hearing it already. I said it in the first 3 minutes. So here's the thing. It goes this. Unexpressed gratitude communicates ingratitude. See, normally when we think of gratefulness and gratitude, we kind of think that the opposite of that is doing something mean. Doing something, you did something intentionally mean to me. But when it comes to gratitude and ingratitude, gratitude is I step out and I show you I did something. Ingratitude means I do nothing. My actions show that I didn't even notice. That's ingratitude. And it's the default for most of us. You see, it's the default. If I do nothing, I show ingratitude. And the problem is unexpressed gratitude communicates ingratitude. And here's the next part of it. He goes, unexpressed gratitude is experienced as rejection. That's how it falls in line, and that's why it happens. You didn't do anything, but that's true. You didn't do anything. But what it communicates, or what is experienced by the other person, is rejection. That's what they experience. You didn't have to do anything, but yet they experience rejection. You didn't mean to. You didn't notice. But the fact you didn't care enough to show gratitude, automatically it's experienced as rejection. Matter of fact, he goes on a little bit more. He goes, over time, unexpressed gratitude has the same effect as rejection. And that's the issue. Over time, you do it once, probably, okay, they just didn't notice, no big deal. You do it over time, and that attitude of ingratitude basically starts telling people they are feeling and they're experiencing rejection in their lives. And that's why some of you have been married for a while, and you've had those talks. It was the building up of this. Over time, they felt rejected. If you have kids and they wanted to get out of your house so fast they couldn't wait, this might have been the cause. The cool thing about the conversation we're having today, guys, is the steps that you take today can change the direction of the relationships. But the problem is if you make no decision, it's experienced as rejection. And over time, unexpected gratitude has the same effect as rejection. People are going to get out of there. They're going to leave you. They're going to distance themselves from you. Because here's the thing. Our hearts gravitate towards acceptance. They do. And this isn't just, and these are the thing about the meaningful relationships that you're in right now. If we're not showing gratitude to those people, they're experiencing rejection. Over time, their hearts are going to be repelled by that rejection. And they're going to distance themselves from you, your company. I'm going to pick on my wife a little bit more here. One of the things, she was at a job for 15 years at a local school system. And during that time, there was just an attitude of ingratitude year after year. There'd be a new principal. They'd do really good at the first week or two, and then the attitude of ingratitude would build and build and build, to the point where she was coming home crying at night. And as a husband, you're like, how can I fix this? I'm going to go beat some people up. That's what you want to do. I'm going to go knock that principal in the head. That's it. It finally got to the point where we just had to say, you have to leave. You just have to be done. You need to go find another school system. And so that's what she did. She goes to a new school system, and the only difference, other than she took a huge pay cut, but it was worth every penny. The only difference is now the principal, the vice principal, they show tons of gratitude. They have teacher of the month experiences. She has parents who are writing letters to her and saying this is like, you know what changed really? She was doing the same stuff at the other school. The only thing that changed was the attitude of gratitude at the new school. The environments you live, that's probably the environment, the thing that those people have created there, it's the attitude of gratitude that's changed. She's working for less, but she's probably working even harder now. And you've been through that. You've been at employers. You've been at jobs. You've been in a marriage. You've been in a relationship. You've had volunteers that you felt this. And you're like, I want to get out of here. I'm repelled by this. Our hearts are repelled by rejection. Our hearts gravitate towards acceptance. Where we can find appreciation, we're going to be gravitate. We're going to be pulled that direction every time. But if do nothing, rejection, separation, they're repelled. Your kids, I can tell you, some of your kids, they worked really hard at something. And if you didn't notice it, they noticed. You didn't know. You thought it's no big deal. They noticed. Sometimes my kids bring me things and they want to show me something, and I have a choice to make. I can say, not now. Sometimes I do have to do that because I'm at work. Or I can act like, oh, that's cool. Or I can go, hey, let me see that. Oh, that's really good. And I can show some appreciation. If they do things, I can show appreciation. Those are big things. They mean a ton because if not, your kid's going to sense rejection. They're going to be repelled by you. They're going to seek out, and here's the biggest scary part, they're going to seek out that acceptance somewhere. They're going to gravitate, find it somewhere. And usually it's places you don't want them going. So this is an important topic. We're trying to decide the direction of our relationships. That's what we're doing here. You can't, I'll tell you, this is probably one of the easiest fixes you can make in your relationships. I'll laugh, I don't want to say something else. I'll get myself in trouble later. Basically, ingratitude, I think I've covered this. Ingratitude is a subtle form of rejection. And if you don't figure it out, it's going to cost you all your meaningful relationships in your life. Okay, this is going to be the tough one, and this is my issue, and this is where I have to confess with my things that I have to get over and, making up for 19 years of this. And this. So this is a little touchy for me, so hopefully you guys can deal with this. If you're like me, and you've experienced people like this, like me, is unexpressed gratitude may indicate an inflated view of yourself. Let that sink in. Unexpressed gratitude may indicate an inflated view of self. Well, I paid them to do that. Well, that's just what wives are supposed to do. Digging the hole, aren't I? Well, they're doing it for God, not for anything else. That's how the church world uses it. Well, you should do more. You're doing it for God. I don't have to tell you thank you for doing that. You're doing it for God. Your employees, your coworkers. If you manage anybody, this is so crucial. Do you think your employees are only doing it for the paycheck? You're wrong. They're doing it for your noticing and appreciating what they're doing. We've already talked about kids. Everywhere you go, you're setting a tone, an attitude. And normally a lot of us who maybe have a hard time with showing gratitude towards others, it's because we think we're too good or these people owe this to us. This is what they're supposed to do. Do you battle that? So we went to I brought this jar, and This jar is from me. Anybody went to this thing, you might have got one of these also. We went to a wedding, was it Valentine's Day? Valentine's Day party deal. And they gave this, and this jar is supposed to be something that you basically just have a bunch of date ideas and stuff in it. You can see ours is dusty and unopened. So like I said, once again, falls mostly on me. But also that night, they gave us a heart, I think much like this one that's in here. And on this heart, we were supposed to write things that we appreciated and loved about our spouse that night. And that night, we're all sitting at the table. I think Tyler and Reagan, I think Owens, you were with us too, maybe. I can't remember. We're all around this table. And that's where so they give us time to write these little letters. And I just can't do it. I'm not a good writer, is what I said. And I just couldn't do it. And I struggled. And so Tyler and Reagan wrote mine for me. And you can tell that the impact of that probably really wasn't real strong. I don't think Jen was feeling too appreciated at that moment that Tyler and Reagan had to write my appreciation. And so that didn't go well. The reason I said, I don't know if that's me, my pride wasn't willing to share what was going on the inside. Because like I said, when we fail to express our gratitude, it comes across as rejection. And I think about how did Jen feel. Not only did I not write it, I let somebody else write it. The unintended rejection that is felt during that moment. If your pride is to a point where you don't feel like you can write things down, then you need to struggle and battle and work through some things in yourself. Because if you think you're too good to express what's inside, let's be honest, especially when it's your spouse, this is somebody you've made babies with them probably, okay? You can be that open, and we really do appreciate that as men. We really do. We do appreciate it. But I'm telling you, how can we be so intimate in one moment and be so unwilling to share the rest? It's a pride thing. For sometimes it's men, it's macho. Men don't write that stuff down. We don't do that. The guys in happy marriages do. The guys with wives that feel appreciated, they do. And so that kind of gets this. Gratitude is not enough to feel it. You've got to express it. Are you going to express it? So today's just a flat-out challenge day. Are you going to be the one who runs back to Jesus? Or are you going to be the 9? Feel it, but not express it. Which one are you going to be? It's a choice. Are you going to complete the loop at opportune times? Are you going to initiate without it, without being told to do so? And that's kind of a funny thing, too. Because that's kind of where I found myself a lot of times when I'd hear speeches and moments like this, and I'd hear people talk about this. I really should do that, but I can't do it now because then she's going to think I'm only doing it because Roger or that's Jim or somebody else told me to do it, right? So you can't do it. I'm like, you can't do it. So you think, well, because they're going to think it, and I understand that. I'm like, I don't want to do this because she's going to think I'm just doing this because he told me to do. Because I agree, it's a good idea, and I've thought about it in the past. It's a great idea, but I want to make it like I'm going to wait 2 weeks and then I'll do it. That's your pride. That's your pride. Because you know what's really mad. You're hoping you put it off long enough she'll forget about it, or they'll forget about it. You're also hoping, and let's just be honest, especially when it comes to men and a marriage and stuff, she knows it's not your idea. 19 years of nothing. She's not going to go, oh, he woke up one day and thought to do this. You know, that's just not normal. She knows that you're doing it. But here's the thing. And this is where the challenge is going to come out, guys, and women, because this goes to all of us, is if we're going to do this, you're now on the clock. And so my challenge for us during this next week is to pick at least 3 people from your life and write them an appreciation. Now, it's not a command. I'm not your boss. I'm not God by any means. But it's a challenge. And I'm just going to tell you this. If the person who you probably need to write it to is sitting in the room, if you fail to do so, it's going to be another subtle form of rejection. So I just turned up the burner a little bit on all of us. Now, before I just pick on the men, women, all of us, kids, all of us, this applies to every last one of us. Because in every one of our lives, if we were to start telling our story about how we made it to where we are now, there's going to be a group, a list of people along the way that helped you get there. If your pride is so strong and so high that you think you got where you are today on your own, you need to definitely do a self-check, because you didn't. Because you know what those people normally do? They end up alone because no one wants to be around them. Self-made people, it's not reality. Think through your life. Who are people along your way? If I said, hey, I want you to come up here and just tell your story, who would you say, whose names would come up along the path of your life that you need to show appreciation for? Maybe it's time you write that personal letter and say thank you. Maybe that person, you don't even know where they are anymore. Let's focus on maybe just the people around you. Maybe it's a coworker. That if you were honest, they've bailed you out a lot of times. You never appreciate it. You have volunteers in a school, or you have volunteers in a ministry. You've never shown appreciation to them. Now, here, I'm going to give you my cop-out. No one else. Well, I'll tell them, hey, dude, thanks. That's not going to cut it. There are some criteria that go with showing gratitude. It needs to be somewhat specific. If you can point out and remember, and I'll be honest with my little thing here, when you buy 19 cards, first of all, it's like $100 worth of cards. Stupid things are expensive. I went through pictures, and I had to think about specific things that took place those years that I could pinpoint and say, thank you for this. I remember the year that my dad died, thank you for this. The year that we had our kids, thank you for this, because it was well beyond just giving birth. There was way other stuff involved in that, way more. Thank you for when I lost my job. Thank you for being on assisted living and lunches with me for a year because we didn't make enough money. All that stuff, it's great. You need to be somewhat specific. You can't just write, thank you. You can't just buy a card and write, I love you, and then sign your name at the bottom. This is about pure appreciation, because gratitude will change the direction or increase or speed up even the further intimacy with people and greater relationships and more depth of relationships if you can start doing this now. And I definitely recommend, if you're a newlywed, don't wait 19 years. Don't wait 19 years. So who is it? Who do you take for granted? Who is it? Who are those people? Who are some people that you need to show gratitude to this week? Not next week. This week. The challenge is on. 3 letters of appreciation to somebody. I would highly recommend that if the person's in this room, do it quickly. Do it today. Do it tomorrow. Don't wait. Don't let your pride sneak in. Let's just close in prayer. I think I've challenged you enough. I've written it. The challenge is out.